So I'm kit bashing a Baneblade for my Traitor Guard army, and I started off with a toy tank. Right now, it's all in sub-assemblies. I'm going to show you all of the pieces before I get them into paint. And before I cut to the tank, let me mention that I am still working on embellishing those ruins that I made in an earlier video. I'm gonna have a video coming soon, but at the moment I have been distracted by tanks. I'm sure you know the drill if you've been in the wargaming hobby for any length of time. Let's make a big tank. This is not the tank I'll be kit bashing today, but it is another of the same style of tank that I am turning into this Baneblade. It's a US Army licensed playset that I picked up at TJ Maxx for a whopping $16.99. It comes with a couple of sprues of kind of plain looking missiles and some very toy-like turrets. A few matchbox-sized cars and this giant tank. Now this thing is approximately Baneblade size. This thing is just about as tall as it needs to be. It's just about as long as it needs to be. It's a little bit narrower than a Baneblade. However, we have side sponsons that we'll have to put on it anyway, so it's fine. This turret is awkwardly sized and shaped for a Baneblade, so we're just going to build a new one. The rest of this body of this tank does not need a lot of work. Here is my Baneblade. There are many like it, but this one is mine. I took this back panel off of a Land Raider sprue just to add some smokestacks and kind of that Mechanicus icon and a little bit of 40K style detail. I made this little dual heavy stubber for the back here. I changed nothing about the sides. I changed nothing about the top. And the front is where we had to go a little crazy. You see that this not only had a very plain front panel, but it also had this like GoPro mount or whatever this is supposed to be. So I wanted to just tear the whole thing off and replace it. So I took a piece of plasticard, and by plasticard, I mean a piece of yard sale sign. You should know that that is actually the cheapest source of plasticard that you can find, for about $2 for 2 square feet of it or so, 84 cents for a smaller sheet. This stuff cuts really easily. It glues pretty well. It doesn't take paint as well as some purpose-made plasticards, but you can sand it or you can prime it and you won't have much of a problem. Now I took it here and I just replaced that old panel with this plain piece of plasticard, and then I embellished. I took a couple extra pieces and just gave some dimension here, and then I took some bits off of the Chaos tank sprue, and then this actually came off the Imperial Guard tank sprue. The twin heavy bolter is from the Land Raider kit, and I just attached it here at the front. That's the main chunk of the Baneblade done. The turret was a little bit more of a thing because the turret is completely scratch built. As you can see, I actually used the pink XPS foam that many people use for terrain, and I used that as the base for this turret itself. I cut all of the angles, I cut the size. I actually utilized a papercraft style model that I found online for all the dimension reference and all that. And then all this detailing is the same plasticard from the yard sale sign that I used earlier. Now I've got the little shroud over here for the gun. Since this is a Stormlord, it's got the Vulcan Mega Bolter, so it's 2 rotary cannons, large rotary cannons here. This is a piece of plastic straw just to get the angle right on it. Most of this is just the foam and the plasticard. That's just a plastic gear from Walmart's craft section, scratched in a couple 8-pointed stars that will hopefully look like they were cut into the metal once I paint it. We'll see how it goes. And then these are just some of the antennas and arrays off of both the Land Raider sprue and the Imperial Guard tank sprue. That's the main chunk of the turret. The gun itself, this is actually several reusable drinking straws. I arranged them into the 6-barrel patterns, and I utilized one in the center, arranged the other way with the plastic retainer ring here sticking out for a little bit more embellishment. And then I used a couple of pieces of plasticard in between these 2 sets of barrels just to separate them. Now this whole shroud here, this is all that plasticard, and I utilized it to get the rough shape, and I'm not super great with using this stuff. There were some gaps, there were some wavy lines, so then I utilized my new best friend, which is Tamiya modeling putty, and I filled in all of the gaps and all the corners with the modeling putty. Now you really want to use gloves for this sort of stuff, and you want to make sure that you let it dry thoroughly. I let it dry overnight, and then I came back and I sanded everything down. For sanding, sanding, you cannot beat using just dollar store nail files. Emery boards, the foam-backed ones, are the best. The buffing boards can be used for finer sanding. They are really helpful, and you're not going to get a pack of sanding sticks that are purpose-built for the hobby for as cheap as you can get, like this pack of a handful of emery boards for $1.25 at the dollar store. Between this plasticard, the modeling putty, and the nail files, you can get a ton of scratch building work done. When you're sanding the putty, you want to try to get it to a point where you can see the transition from the white plastic to the gray primer. It's going to look like a nice paint blend as you start to get that mix correct. Now we've got a Baneblade with a turret and some guns and a greater demon of fur that's getting in the way of me filming the rest of my stuff. Lucy, why are you like this? Now, as I mentioned earlier, the big problem that I had was that it is significantly narrower than a Baneblade needs to be by a couple of inches. I want to say it's like 2 inches, 2.5 inches, something like that with sponsons. So what I did was I made these sponson type of blocks, again out of XPS foam. Now I made a strip that was this shape, and then I just cut it into 1-inch blocks or 1.25-inch blocks so that I could make it into these. So this is more of the plasticard, the yard sale sign, and all that I did here, I took those sponsons and I used them as a pattern to cut holes into this piece of plasticard. I basically made it into like an ablative armor sheet that I can put on the tank. And the plan is, because I have a couple pieces of foam core on the back and a little bit of extra room here, when I glue it to the front of the Baneblade, it's going to look like extra armor panels. It's going to give that little air gap between the armor and the tank itself. And in addition to the regular one piece of plasticard, I was worried that might be a little too flimsy. I wanted to double it up in some areas. So I took some more pieces of plasticard, and as you can see, I cut some rivets into it. I just used a pointed awl, and I poked it through from the other side to create that texture. So now I've got some riveted panels that I glued on along the midline of this armor in order to strengthen the actual piece of plastic itself. I took these sponson pieces, I cut out the middle, and then I chopped it up so that I could utilize the back portion here to close in the back of the sponson. And then I've got some weapons to throw in. Let me grab those. These were easy enough. They came out of the Land Raider kit. I happened to have 2 in resin and 2 in plastic. They're pretty much as is. I did not attach the larger flamer tanks. I'm just running with the logic that the fuel barrels must be inside the tank, as these will barely fit into these sponsons. I did kind of make, smaller sized sponsons for a larger sized weapon, but they do just fit. So that'll be my 4 twin heavy flamers. And then I still need 4 las cannons. Luckily, this is, as I mentioned, a traitor guard build. And so, as you can see, I utilized things that won't stay in focus, obviously due to the corrupting influence of chaos. I utilized these heads, these gun barrel heads, from the Chaos tank sprue, which makes it very convenient to make a couple of las cannons out of just some round pieces of sprue I have from some 1/35th scale kits. This is a cap from a spray can lid. It was just a little bit too wide to sit on top of the sponsons, so I just cut away that little bit of the circle, and now they sit on top. So I will have these turrets on top of the sponsons on all 4 corners. Going onto the tank, before I even spray anything, I need to make sure that I base coat all of the foam in something protective so that the spray paint does not eat it, since I am going to use a proper spray primer to make sure that things stick to this plasticard. I don't have the option of using a non-solvent based spray paint for this, so I have to coat this. I'm going to utilize just some white glue mixed with some flat black paint. I'm going to coat all of the foam things. And then once all of the pink is obscured, all of the foam is protected by that mixture of flat black paint and just white glue, I'm gonna spray paint everything else, and then we'll see how quickly I can get a Baneblade painted. You may get a video today that includes a painted Baneblade, and if there's about 15 seconds left on the clock down here, you'll know that the painted version is coming up in a follow-up video. Ready to paint. Hello there, it's 4 a.m. and I'm painting instead of sleeping. I got everything into primer, and right now I've just gone through and dry brushed the entire thing in Citadel Deathworld Forest, but I wanted to kind of rip the band-aid off of one big problem that I had and show it to you now instead of having it be glaringly obvious and yet unmentioned in the reveal. When I was priming this all, there was a corner of the turret that was not as well protected as I wanted it to be. I did not coat it well enough with the base coat paint and glue mix, which I put down to protect the foam from the spray paint. So a corner of the turret melted a little bit. It's not terrible. It's a little more rounded than I would like, considering it's supposed to be a metal structure. That being said, for now, we're just going to finish the painting and the final construction of this thing. Later, I will either sculpt or greeble on some details to try to, add some Nurgle-y feel to it to cover up the problem, or I may just rebuild the turret. For right now, it is not such a big problem. There's a reason why I'm not a painting channel. I'm more terrain and kit bashing and ideas, not finely refined painting skills. That being said, let me give you a quick idea of how I painted it, just to get it to this battle ready standard that I'll show you by the end of the video. My traitor guard is Nurgle aligned, and I kind of want to paint him to match my pre-heresy inspired Death Guard army. So we started with the flat black primer coats, and then I did a really heavy overbrush, really heavy dry brush of Citadel Deathworld Forest. So I got, 90% coverage, 85% coverage, somewhere like that, and just left the real recesses still in the black paint. Now I'm going to go back through and do a lighter dry brush of Citadel's Death Guard green for highlighting, and then I'm going to, from there, probably just start picking out details in Screaming Bell. So once I have done the greens, once I have done the metallics in Screaming Bell, I'm going to go back through and do any gunmetal silver details, any black details, pick all those out, and then I should be ready pretty much for assembly at that point. While I've got these shots going, you can also get a little bit of a sneak peek at the next Kitbash Baneblade that I've got going on. But if you want to see how that's going, you can follow me over at Instagram. The page name is the same as Green Zebra Crafting, and I post a lot more of my conceptual stuff and the half-finished stuff and all of that. I've got a lot of just dumb ideas that don't make it all the way into paint or don't need a tutorial. But anyway, let me get this into final paint, and then we'll come back and we'll give you the little turntable shot, if I can get my turntable to hold up this weight. Here's my first Kitbash Baneblade for my traitor guard. Hopefully I've been able to show you a little something along the way, a new tool or a trick or a material or something like that that you might not have thought of in the past. Got a few more videos in the works. The next one should be that Ruins video that I was putting off to build a Baneblade, and hopefully I'll see you around when that one comes out.